we got some harsh numbers to share with you folks as we're kind of getting into the Halloween season, going towards Christmas, going towards the holiday season. This is not the kind of message that we want to hear. This is, we're hoping that things are going to turn up. We hope things get better, but things are getting worse and things are going in a very, very dark, awful direction. So, especially with food banks. And we know that food banks, the numbers continue to increase, but not at this alarming rate. So Melissa L.M. Rogers states, holy crap, food bank usage in Canada is skyrocketing. A crisis. Usage in Toronto has climbed 340% since 2019. Why can't people afford necessities in Canada? And she links this to the CBC article that just came out. This is from October 27th, where it says Toronto's food bank use keeps hitting new records faster than ever before, according to a new report. More than 4.1 million visits made to Toronto food banks from March 2024 to April of 2025. But thank God you have a central banker in power, because he's going to change that around, right? He's going to make things affordable. We're going to save this crisis by re-electing the same party that contributed to this crisis. It's going to work out, right? It's going to work out. Trust me. Elbows up. That's what you keep hearing, right? So here's Pierre Poilievre, the official opposition leader. It says, breaking, food bank visits have doubled under the Liberals. 2.2 million in a single month, the highest in Canadian history. Liberal inflation and grocery taxes have made food banks a necessity to survive. Ending the suffering, bring hope, and affordable food. Do you remember, we showed this a little while ago, that there was a vote in the House of Commons to reduce the carbon taxes and the grocery taxes on Canadians to make food more affordable. And the Liberals, the NDP, and the Green Party all contributed and said no. They said no to reducing the taxes on necessities like groceries. They said no to it. They want to make food unaffordable. They want to segregate people from getting access from nutritious food. And they want people to line up at food banks and start monitoring people's intake, start monitoring people's access to food. Kind of interesting. It almost sounds like Gaza. We're monitoring people's intake. We want to monitor people's calories. So instead of actually being able to afford your own groceries and being able to afford, organic, healthy, nutritious food in stores, grown by farmers, instead of doing that, we want to entice people away from that, make it so unaffordable that they have to line up at food banks where they get canned goods. Canned goods that are very questionable, that are probably filled with chemicals that could do possible worse damage to your body, to your system. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And Pierre Poilievre, I made statements about him in the past, and I continue to make statements about the wrongdoings, but he's been right about this. And he continues to harp against the ruling Liberal Party on how they demonize people's basic necessities, like groceries. So here's CTV News Channel even talking about it, and hear what they say.
To some other news this morning, a concerning new report from Food Banks Canada says increased levels of poverty and hunger are becoming normalized in this country. Food bank visits continue to rise across Canada, reaching nearly 2.2 monthly visits. That's double the number from 2019. CTV's Scott Hurst is on that story for us this morning, and he is with me now. Scott, this is a really concerning report that is showing no signs of things changing direction.
Marcia, some staggering numbers coming from this latest Food Banks Canada report. It shows visits to food banks continuing to increase, and that is a significant increase over last year, up 5% from just last year. But as you mentioned, doubling since 2019. And that includes every single province and territory seeing soaring demand over the last several years. No region has been spared. And as you mentioned, the report points out that poverty and hunger are ultimately being normalized in Canada, and that the food bank system is no longer sustainable in the way it was meant to operate, for a last resort, not a primary source of food and nutrition for millions of Canadians. So here are some of the sobering numbers and statistics.
So I just want to pause there. I just want to show people this infographic here, this breakdown, the statistic. So 2.2 million monthly visits in 2025, 99.4% from 2019. 1 in 5 of those. So 1 in 5 of the 2.2 million are employed. These are people with jobs. Because I know people on X, I know people on social media are going to hamper down on this and say, well, it's the unemployed people's fault. It's go out and get a job. You have to make money. You have to earn a living. You know, suck it up. Put on your bootstraps. You know, go out there and make a living. And people don't realize that a lot of people that are homeless and are lining up at food banks are actually employed. They're earning a living. They're making a keep. But because necessities like groceries and sheltering yourself, like being able to rent an apartment, are so expensive, they can't afford the basic necessities. They can't afford survival in this country. So before you start demonizing people and say, well, the people at food banks are just a bunch of moochers that don't want to get jobs, they're a bunch of drug addicts and blah, 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 because I've heard all the stereotypes. I've heard them all. Keep this in mind. 1 in 5 of those people, of the 2.2 million, are employed. They have jobs. A lot of them have full-time jobs. And they still can't be able to afford anything because of the mass inflation, because of carbon taxes, because of the tariffs, and because just the genuine sense of the destruction and decry of this nation. This is completely draining out the Canadian economy. Mark Carney is a hitman for the globalist empire. That's why he is the prime minister. That is why he came at the nick of time to save us from the harsh realms of Donald Trump, even though it's been a disaster, even trying to use the exploitation of the trade war in his favor. It's been an absolute disaster as he continues to drain out the Canadian economy. These are mobsters. These are mafia ghouls that don't give a damn about you. They want to siphon out the countries. They want to hollow out the very essence of what makes Canada and what makes the United States and serve it to their globalist mafia billionaires, the gangsters, the thugs, the criminals, the cartels that should be arrested and held to the highest contempt while this is going on. And yet they'll make arguments about how we need to, send money off to Ukraine or send money to Argentina or save the people of Nepal or whatever the case may be. We got to provide them, education for gender studies at a time when 2.2 million monthly visits are occurring in Toronto alone. That's just Toronto. That's not the national average. That's just in Toronto.
The visits to food banks have doubled since 2019, almost 2.2 million visits in March 2025 alone. And as I mentioned, every single province and territory is seeing a significant increase in demand, as well as 1 in 5 food bank clients who are employed, have jobs, have a stable income, yet after covering everything else, all the other bills in terms of living.
Look at this, 33% of the 2.2 million, 33% are children. Children. Just I want to highlight this to all the trolls that are going to be on social media harping on this. But all these moochers, they need to go out and get jobs. I'm so sick and tired. People on welfare, handouts, blah, blah, blah. 33% are children line up at food banks. because of how disastrous the economy is getting. How disastrous Mark Carney's administration, how disastrous the globalization of Canada's turning. That they're hollowing out this nation. They don't give a damn about you. They don't give a damn about their citizens. They're hollowing out this nation for their upper cartels. And this is the result of it. People are starving in one of the most developed nations in the Western Hemisphere. 70% of food bank users live in market rent housing. And they still can't afford. They still can't afford.
Living expenses are still falling short when it comes to what's needed to put food on the table.
That's insane. That is insane. So, this is from the Financial Post. And I want to highlight this specific section because food increases are happening. The prices are going up. They're not going down. They're not resorting to the best for Canadians. They're not, making the country better. It's actually getting worse. So, under the Financial Post says, which food item had the highest price increase? Over the past year, coffee has had the sharpest increases. Coffee prices were up by 28.6% within the last month. The surge has been attributed to poor weather conditions in major coffee-producing countries such as Brazil and Vietnam, as well as trade tensions and the tariffs imposed by the United States President Donald Trump earlier this year. So, because we're in this trade war with the United States has a say in the coffee reserves in these Latin American countries. That's affecting coffee trade with Latin American countries and in Vietnam, because it goes through the United States. And since the United States has a tariff against us, that coffee that comes from Vietnam and Brazil is affected by this. Not to mention, that's also attributed to carbon taxes. So all this combined is uptaking coffee prices. And that's why people are now realizing that Tim Hortons had to raise their prices. And as an avid coffee drinker myself, I've had to cut back on coffee. Which, we'll see how that goes. We'll see how beneficial it is, because some people are saying that it's a healthy thing. But we'll see. Some good, some bad when it comes to limiting coffee. The price hike suggests that global supply pressures are now trickling down to everyday consumers, making the morning cup of coffee noticeably more expensive and adding further strain to household budgets already challenged by the high cost of food nationwide. So what other prices are affected? Protein staples were among the biggest contributors to higher grocery bills. The price of fresh or frozen beef rose 14% year over year, driven by extreme weather in central plains and prairies of the United States, resulting in smaller cow herds. Now, the argument I made about this is that we already know that they're manipulating the weather. We already know that there's corporations, there are, NGOs, there's military organizations that are able to manipulate the weather. They're able to cloud seed. They're able to manufacture rain. They're able to, do all this kind of scientific experimentation to nature. If they're able to do all that, if they're able to, manufacture a flood in a place like Dubai, which is basically desert, then why are they not able to manufacture rain in drought-stricken farmland areas that would provide vegetation to the country and make food prices more readily available? Oh, that's right, because they don't give a damn. Because they want you to starve. Because they want you to go towards Bill Gates and other nefarious ghouls that want to feed you synthetic glop until eventually you die. Because they don't give a damn about you. You are the carbon that they want to reduce. They want to reduce you. They want to reduce the population. Because you have become too much of an inconvenience for the ruling class. Now that AI has came out and AI robotics being trained by them to do whatever they say without any hesitation or consequences, because of AI and the transformative takeover of the workforce, they have no use for you. So this is all done purposely, because it's not affecting the billionaire class. They're still eating steak tartare. They're still eating caviar. But your morning coffee, your eggs, your bacon, your basic groceries, feeding your kids' school lunches, that's all being impacted by this. The price of chicken and pork also climbed last month by 1.5% and 5.5% respectively year over year, following broader trends in rising meat prices across the country. Seafood is also another protein causing consumers more. The price of seafood overall increased by 5.5% in September compared to this year, with the price of canned salmon rising by 8.3% in that same month. Canned salmon. Well, thank God we're bombing Vietnam fishermen, because that's not affected by it, right? Bombing a bunch of fishing guys that are manufacturing canned tuna and canned salmon. That wouldn't affect prices, right? Going after Venezuela. Thank God we're not. Thank God that's dealt with. Other notable year-over-year prices increased last month included nuts and seeds, which rose over 15.7%. Trump's 50% tariffs on Brazilian goods is a big reason for the hike, since that country is one of Canada's biggest Brazil nut, cashew, and peanut sources. So there goes peanut butter. Feeding your kids peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. That's going to be costly now. The price of dairy items such as eggs and ice cream rose up by 1.4% and 1.9% respectively. All these increases reflect either continued global pressure on animal feed, trade tensions, or volatile climate conditions. So things are not good. Things are not good. And some people say, well, what about America? I'm sure America is, fine. I'm sure, America, land of the free, home of the brave, they're doing better than commie Canada. Well, America is no picnic either. So here's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who is a former George Soros worker. Just to let you know, he used to be employed by George Soros, who's now got elected by Donald Trump, just to show you how connective everything is. It's a small world. It's a small club, and you ain't in it. That's the message there. The Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent thinks cherry picking is happening when asked about the increases on grocery prices. So here's Kristen, what's her name? Kristen Walker, I think her name is, from Meet the Press, and she's going to ask Scott Bessent about trying to decrease the grocery prices, because it's also affecting America as well.
You're back at home. Inflation, we learned this week that inflation in September ticked back up to 3%. That's the highest level since January. I want you to take a listen to something that President-elect Trump told me back in December. Take a look.
I started using the groceries. When you buy apples, when you buy bacon, when you buy eggs, they would double and triple the price over a short period of time. And I won an election based on that. We're going to bring those prices way down.
Mr. Secretary, coffee.
We're going to bring the grocery prices down. I love the word groceries. It's the first time I've ever heard that. It makes me feel so connected with poor people. Your words are groceries. It seems like a magical place. Groceries. Yeah, remember that? Remember that promise? Just like the promise you were going to release the Epstein files. Just like the promise you're going to arrest people within the Biden administration, go after the people within the deep state. Oh, that's right. You took part of the deep state and took it for yourself, just like this schmuck. It's so amazing that people think that, Donald Trump is still going after the deep state, even though this guy came directly from George Soros. George Soros, who was their number one primal enemy for many, many years. And now the guy who came directly from George Soros is working in the Trump administration. Nothing to see there. Nothing infuriating about that. It's still MAGA, right? Just because we're giving billions of dollars to Argentina that's going right into the hands of the billionaires. It's not even going to Argentina. It's not going to Argentinians. It's not going to Americans. It's going right to the billionaires' pockets. Nothing nefarious about that, right? Still making America great again. And people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey need to keep their mouths shut from talking about American issues, because nothing makes America great again. It doesn't make America great again to talk about American issues. We just got to bail out the billionaires more. Unbelievable. So let's hear his response.
Prices are up 19% from a year ago. Beef is up almost 15%, and bacon up almost 6%, just to name a few. So when are all grocery prices going to come down, as President Trump promised?
Well, Kristen, it's unfortunate. As much as I like you, you like to cherry pick. So, when we came in, it was eggflation.
Sorry, she didn't mention about cherries. She didn't mention fruits. I don't know where you get the cherry picking. Yeah, oh my God, coffee, bacon. You're cherry picking things. No, she's listing most common ingredients for like breakfast. A lot of people are concerned about that. A lot of people are concerned about beef prices. Because, ground beef is tend to be a common staple in middle-class households.
Inflation, egg prices are down, gasoline prices are down. Overall, the inflation since President Trump has come in, has come down. We inherited this terrible affordability crisis from the Biden administration. The first thing we had to do was get it under control, and this month's inflation number was actually below the consensus number. If we look at core inflation, it was 0.2%, which was the lowest it's been in a long time. Rents are coming down. So, Kristen, you don't get to cherry pick. Inflation is a composite number, and I am confident that in the coming months, inflation is going to come down.
But the thing is, she's not cherry picking. She's stating that it's the same inflation as January. So as Trump was coming in to be sworn in as president, the inflation rate is the same rate as it was then as it is now. And this idea that, I don't know what you're talking about, egg prices are going down. Like, what does this guy know? What does Scott Bassett know? I bet you in his entire life he has never had to buy groceries. I'm sure he's got maids. I'm sure he's got butlers. I'm sure he's got handlers that do the errand runs. Like, does he know about food prices? Does he know how much it costs to feed a family? Do you know how much it costs to feed just an individual? I was at the grocery store the other day, and just for me to fill a small tote bag was over $60. And I didn't even buy any meat. I didn't get any meat. I didn't get any poultry. Just regular General Mill stuff. And it was still over $60. What's this guy talking about? What's this guy talking about? Oh, you're crazy. You're just cherry picking. No, she's making the statement that inflation has either been the same since January, and it's getting worse because your promises that these tariffs, that these, tensions between foreign nations is going to help people, and it's done the exact opposite. Exactly what Ronald Reagan stated. And now you're seeing affecting, farmers. You're seeing that soybean farmers are being screwed over because other nations are looking elsewhere for their crop. You're seeing that there's exploitation with the auto manufacturers, the exploitation with the ship ports. How it's affecting small businesses because someone like him does not give a damn. He does not give a damn about the small business owner. He doesn't give a damn about the family man or the family woman. He does not give a damn about anyone except for his cartel buddies. This man is a criminal. This guy is a criminal thug. He's a gangster. And your entire world is run by criminal gangsters. And they serve the criminal gangster cartel. That's why they're just okay with this. They're okay with this. And, oh, Kristen Macker is just cherry picking stuff. Go to a grocery store. I dare Scott Bassett to walk into a grocery store in America and try to prove us wrong. Go ahead. Buy some groceries. Prove us wrong.
To be very clear, though, CPI has been higher in the past 3 months than it was in the first 5 months of the year. If President Trump's economic policies are working, why is inflation up? Why are those grocery prices that I just mentioned that he said were so critical, why are they up?
Well, again, Kristen, you're cherry picking because inflation actually had a drop, the first drop in 4 years in March and April under President Trump. And I am confident that as we come into the coming numbers, that we will see a drop in inflation back towards the Fed's 2% target.
But that's not the case, because as inflation was dropping, all that money that we cut back from Doge, and this is why Elon Musk had a riff with Donald Trump, because he thought Doge was actually going to cut the government spending and put it back in the hands of the people. They didn't cut back the spending. They transferred it to the Pentagon. They increased the spending, which is going to cause more inflation. Which is why Elon Musk got pissed off at Donald Trump, because he got exploited by Trump. They used him. They abused him through Doge to extract all these government services, take the money out of Medicare, take the money out of Social Security and all that, and transfer it right to the Pentagon. The Pentagon that has failed every audit they've ever received. A criminal organization. They give it right to the Pentagon. They increase the deficit to now over $37 trillion. And now they're busting out Argentina. Why? Because it helps George Soros, this guy's former boss. These people hate you. These people despise you. And that is why Scott Bassett and Donald Trump and all these nefarious ghouls within the United States, just like the same nefarious ghouls in Canada. We saw, Chrystia Freeland standing in the House of Commons, bragging about herself, going to one school and feeding a child. Well, we gave them an apple and a banana and some granola bar and a juice box, and then I took a picture, and that was it. So I fed a child, so shut up. These people don't give a damn about you. These are people that are trained. These are trained individuals, purposely designed and sent into power to not give a damn about you, to continue on the exploitation, to turn you into their technocratic feudalist slaves. That's what they're doing here. They're making food unaffordable, basic survival unaffordable. So you're destined to be a slave to their technological feudalist society that they're now overpowering. They want to transform society away from the healthy stability of the 1950s and 60s, your parents' and grandparents' age, to this society where you no longer have rights, you no longer have decision power. Everything is being monitored by nefarious ghouls like him. And it's just absolutely dark. It's absolutely nefarious, and it's disgusting. And for anyone to look at this and cheerlead for someone like Scott Bassett and say like, oh yeah, like I see people now cheerleading the fact that people on food stamps won't be able to collect because the government shut down. I see people cheerleading like, oh yeah, bunch of moochers, go out and get jobs. As we showed you before, a lot of the people that are going to food banks are employed. So how's that argument work? Oh, they just need a job. They need a better job. That's not going to help grocery prices, you idiots. So as I stated here, Scott Bassett is a white-collar criminal of George Soros' clan. The world is ruled by wanted gangsters and autocratic thugs, programming useless shut accounts on here to cheer on the destruction. The ruthless monsters in Washington, D.C. and Ottawa should all be arrested. if there was a thing called proper justice. That's my take of it. If there actually was justice in the world, these monsters, there'd be endless investigations on how awful, how disparaging, how Scott Bassett was able to be part of the Trump administration after working for just an absolute monster like George Soros, which you can't even really talk much about because any accusation towards George Soros is now considered anti-Semitic. I don't know if you know that, but that's part of the new ruling. That's part of the new censorship transformation. That, oh, well, if you mention George Soros, one of the richest billionaires to manufacture dissent against countries and cause chaos, if you say anything bad about that, you're anti-Semitic. They're using it to their advantage. And here's Fortune magazine. Bassett calls anti-tariff Reagan at a psyops. At the same time, the U.S. is rescuing Argentina. Still counts as America first because it helps an ally. So at the same time, he's going against people openly stating and showing reports of how unaffordable groceries are and saying that's cherry picking, or going after the Ronald Reagan ad. He says that helping Argentina, giving the billionaire class a bailout while it screws over America and Argentina, because it's not going towards those people, it's going towards a hedge fund, is somehow America first. Your country's been hijacked. Your country's been hijacked. MAGA no longer exists within the Trump camp. MAGA only exists in certain places like Thomas Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Two of the most predominant voices you hear in America that actually care about American issues. And of course, both of them are subjugated to being primaried. Of course. Because the government does not work for you. The government works for the billionaire class. The government works for the corporate estate. The government works for the NGOs. None of these people give a damn about you, and this is proof of it. And now we are witnessing the utter destruction where necessities like groceries, people can't afford to live if they don't have the access to basic necessities. Groceries have become more expensive than luxury goods. So even when people make the argument of like, oh, you got to stop buying the smartphones or buying these, watches on Temu or whatever the case may be. Again, just look at how upside down backwards it is that groceries, being able to afford nutritious food, have become more expensive than luxury items that you could buy on Temu. Think of how crazy that is. Food that could be grown in your backyard become more expensive because of just how disastrous the economy is, the government has been, how they're demonizing farmers, how they're going after and epitomizing people, how everyone's being affected. It's just absolutely absurd that the basic necessities have become so more expensive than luxury goods, and people have to line up at food banks, even when they have jobs. So people's arguments of saying, "Oh, you just got to work harder," that's not an argument. That's already been diminished because the people running at food banks, lining up, a huge portion of them are employed, and a huge portion of them are children. So that diminishes that entire narrative. Just like Scott Bassett's narrative of being America first, when clearly he's serving the billionaires first, the global cabal of master elite criminals.